Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show, All-Star Edition. We are going to make our All-Star picks today. I have a little bit of news to get into as well. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, All-Star game coming up, and this is one of my favorite shows of the year. We get to make our picks. Of course, we don't have the pressure of actually having ballots
Yep.
where we're really concerned, so we get to have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, it was funny. There were a couple times when I was like, I kind of want to cheat the positions here just because I thought like it could get me an extra guy in that I really
Yeah.
wanted somewhere. But I didn't. I tried to be fair to the entire process and all that. And I didn't try to guess who would get voted in or anything like that. Although I don't know that we're gonna get anyone necessarily voted in that like
Yeah.
is not an all-star. Like I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, I'm excited to get into those after we cover a little bit of news.
So are you saying I shouldn't have put Austin Reeves into my All-Star starting
I
five?
mean, that's entirely up to you. You're just going to have
Oh,
to
shoot.
justify it when we get there a little bit later in the show.
All right, let's talk a little bit of news. First of all, some returns. Brandon Ingram, welcome back.
2
Been
months.
2 months of no
Yeah.
Brandon Ingram. Pelicans have been good even without BI.
Yeah.
And now Brandon Ingram coming back, was dealing with a toe issue, and now he'll be back for the Pelicans. It's been good timing. Obviously, we got the news yesterday on Zion Williamson as well that a couple more weeks for him to get reevaluated,
Yeah.
but Brandon Ingram will give them a real boost, assuming he can just, step right in. There's even when it's a good player coming back, there's that kind of reintegration process. There can be some bumps in the road and stuff, but ultimately this is going to be big for the Pelicans.
Yeah, after they had kind of separated from the pack a little bit, they were up around that Denver, Memphis area, and then the Kings were up in that group as well. New Orleans has lost 5 in a row, and they really a big part of the losing for them recently has been their offense just isn't as smooth. So that's where Ingram's really going to help them once he's back up to speed. So yeah, getting him back. Hopefully another couple weeks. Zion's back out there, and we get to see a full strength Pelicans team for not knocking wood the rest of the season. But we'll see how that goes. That team seems to be a little bit snake bit with the injuries.
Yeah, and in LA, we've got Anthony Davis making his
I've heard of him.
He's officially listed as questionable for tonight's game against the Spurs, but sounds like unless something happens pregame where they just say, "Hey, let's hold off," he'll be back in action for the Lakers. And we got a little bit of a surprise today too. Lonnie Walker suddenly popped up as questionable. He's been out with knee tendonitis. We were not anticipating this. We were thinking maybe this weekend at the earliest, and suddenly listed as questionable on the injury report as well for LA. So Lakers getting a bit healthier.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think they said Hachimura will be available to play in this game.
Indeed.
After he didn't play, and that's not uncommon after a trade. A guy very regularly they miss the first game or two as they kind of acclimate. Especially this wasn't a hey, head down the road type of trade. This was a go all the way across the country and meet a new team, deal with him. So yeah, obviously you can't understate Anthony Davis coming back. Absolutely massive for the Lakers. Get Hachimura. If you get Walker back, that's basically your full squad now. You're about as off and running as you've been all season long as the Lakers, and that gives Darvin Ham here what I don't know exactly how many games they have before the All-Star or before the trade deadline, but at least it gives you a couple weeks to really kind of look at these guys. I would be lying if I didn't say I'm a little excited that we're going to get semi full strength Lakers, probably sort of full strength Celtics on a Saturday night. We're going to have to come up with something by the end of the week for our little wager, our twice annual wager on that one.
Yeah, we'll come up with something for that. But yeah, look, whether it's obviously we've got rivalries and all that kind of stuff. I just love hearing players are coming back from injury period. Like around the league. I just want guys to be healthy and come back. It just means a better product. It means more fun basketball out there on the floor. So fantastic stuff. And then this one, he's kind of the forgotten man, right? Danny, I think most people, if you ask them, what team does Danny Green play for? They won't know.
Yeah, probably get Spurs. I don't know. Yeah. Raptors still, Lakers. Yeah, people might, oh, wait, he's with Philly, right? No, he's with the Memphis Grizzlies. And he's coming back. 8 months for Danny Green with 2 torn knee ligaments. I talked about this in a previous episode we did where there's a lot of stuff out there that maybe some of these older players, so Danny Green, Joe Ingles, Danilo Gallinari, who tore his ACL over the summer, is talking about trying to get back before the end of the regular season. for the Celtics too, because he really wants to get out there and help the guys on the court. So I think in the case of Danny Green, this is in those other guys, it's probably I don't have 10 more years of a career to protect here. I've got probably 2 or 3 years of good basketball left in me. Let me get out there. And I think Danny Green can really, really help this Grizzlies team if he can be Danny Green, if he can hold his own defensively, kind of 1 through 3 like he always has, and then hit some jump shots. That's something Memphis can use. They don't have a real other wing on that team that they trust fully outside of Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks. So this gives them one more guy they can kind of throw in the mix there.
Absolutely. I mean, look, you can't have enough wings in the NBA, and Danny Green is a veteran. I'm not expecting him to step right in and get major minutes or anything like that, but you know what? He's a veteran you can turn to, and I mean, who knows? Maybe if he plays well the first few games back, maybe even he becomes a name on the trade front, something like that. Again, it would be surprising, but you never know.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt.
Now, unfortunately, it's not all good news. We do have some injuries to get into as well. Bobby Portis. The Bucks fans have got to just be feeling snake bit at this point, and Lakers fans are right there with you. But we know how you feel. Just have not been able to get healthy this season. As soon as it looks like they're going to be healthy, boom, Bobby Portis out for it's at least a couple of weeks here with this injury.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, sprained MCL for Portis, and we know those are weird ones. Sometimes it is only a couple of weeks. Other times it's a month or more. So we'll see. Guy could have maybe been in the mix for 6th man of the year. He's played really great for Milwaukee. He's obviously found his kind of career home there, I think, with the Bucks after bouncing around in the early part of his career. He's a big part of them winning the championship. Really just a good, solid player. And what ultimately for Milwaukee is kind of a 3-man front court with him, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. So it's definitely a big loss for the Bucks, who just got Giannis back. Chris Middleton just came back again for Chris Middleton after a second absence. So they're just in a little bit of a spot. They got to get through it here. Their challenge, I think, biggest part right now is they don't necessarily have another guy that they can plug in that fills Portis's spot. So they're not going to just all of a sudden start playing Giannis 40 minutes a night. That's not going to happen. So I'm very curious to see how they go about it. And maybe this could potentially change some of their trade deadline looking, or do they say, all right, we really want Jay Crowder. What is it we got to do to get this deal done and push it across the finish line? Whatever it is, we'll see how that goes. But my guess is that they may be a little bit more active now. We talked about it. Serge Ibaka no longer a part of the plans there. Milwaukee's not even with the team anymore as they work on either a trade or more likely probably a buyout for him. Probably because he's on a minimum, just be a straight waiver.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. Unfortunately, this isn't the only injury. Steven Adams is now also going to be out for a length of time here for the Grizzlies. This is a tough blow as well. Again, they get Danny Green coming in and Steven Adams on his way out. But I mean, he's a major force for them. So what do the Grizzlies do here in the meantime in a very, very tight race in the West?
Yeah, my guess is what they've done when Adams has missed games this year, whether to injury or just sitting them out for rest, they go to Xavier Tillman, who's kind of somewhat of a replica of Adams in the fact that, hey, set screens, rebound, play some defense. We don't need anything else out of you. Just you do the dirty work. Well, what really makes Memphis's defensive system work is Adams does all of the banging and bumping and all that stuff, while Jared Jackson Jr. is able to do all kind of the cleanup of he gets the blocks and all that sort of stuff that just really makes them a very solid defensive team. So I think what we're looking at now is Tillman's going to have to do that. He's not as good as Adams, obviously. Then they're probably going to have to lean a little bit more on Brandon Clark, a little bit more on Santi Aldama coming off their bench. We'll see if they go to some more smaller units. I know a lot of people went to, they'll just move Jaren Jackson Jr. to the 5 even more. I don't know that they're going to do that, because I don't think then you kind of lose what makes Jaren Jackson Jr. a little bit special with his ability. If he's just hanging out at the rim, you lose some of what he is really good at. So we'll see, but they've got more than enough depth. They should be able to get by for the next month or so while Adams is out.
Yeah, agreed. I think they can, but again, not ideal. Transaction news here. Matt Ishbia is on the verge of completing his purchase of the Phoenix Suns. I mean, and just in time, we've heard the Suns are willing to move a future pick and things like that in order to help the team win. Doesn't sound like he's interested. And I mean, the Suns have lost more games than expected. New ownership not interested in tanking and trying to get into the Wembanyama sweepstakes or anything like that. they want to win right now. So I would have to imagine that this is only going to make the Suns that much more aggressive on the market trying to get something done. At the very least, we're like 50 games into the season and we still haven't seen Jay Crowder. At the very least, there should be a Jay Crowder trade coming for the Suns before February 9th, right?
100%. You even if you get to 250 on Thursday on the trade deadline day, you say, all right, a second round pick for Crowder, great, done, go.
Yeah.
And they'll get more than that for him. They're not going to get this. They've reportedly asked for, started out with the old, well, we might need a couple firsts. Well, that's definitely not happening. I kind of doubt they even get a first unless it's, hey, can you kind of take back our, $10 million sort of questionable salary? Maybe it's a guy who extends a year. What I wonder now is, though, if Ishbia is coming in, and it sounds like they'd kind of given the push of, hey, we could take on some money, which that made me wonder, like, I bet this is getting pushed through before the deadline because Sarver was like, I'm not taking on money for this. Like, why would I do that? So I think what now it becomes is you may have, if you're green or James Jones, you may have the green light to say, hey, Crowder and Dario Saric, that's $20 million in expiring salary. Who wants to talk? Like, let's go. I've got, 20 million out there.
Got a blank check here.
Yeah, and they're obviously very okay with 3-team trade constructions. Maybe they get involved in John Collins. Like, that could be kind of interesting because you're right there. If you get to the 20 million, if you're willing to take on some money moving forward with the new guy, that could be a way. We've heard the Hawks are interested in Crowder multiple times in the past. So something's going to happen with Phoenix. There's going to be a move that comes over the next couple of weeks, and it's not just going to be some minor like send Crowder off in someone's trade exception or something like that. It's going to be an actual move.
Yeah. And it seems like the most smoke right now for Crowder in terms of a landing spot, it's the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see where he ultimately winds up. But it'll be somewhere.
Yep.
It'll be somewhere.
Yeah, he's not going to – there's no way come 3 o'clock on Thursday or let me say, whenever the trade call finalizes, because we hope we'll have a very long and lengthy trade queue.
That's right.
There. It's funny. I actually have a friend who used to work in the NBA office helping process trade calls and did – that's not what they did, but they did that on trade deadline day because there was so much going on. So it was like they were kind of like the organizer of, hey, do you have everything? Because the way it works is if you don't have everything ready for the trade call, there's sometimes, and that's it, trade can't happen because you're not ready and prepared for it. And then that's when you can occasionally run into the old, which Brooks are we trading here? That didn't get as far as a trade call.
But still.
But you can run into things like that. So, yeah, it's a kind of a crazy day for the NBA league offices.
All right, let's get into our all-star picks. I listed mine. I went east to west. Do you want to kick us off with your East starters here, Keith?
Yeah. So I will say this to start this out. The East front court, there are 4 guys for 3 spots, unless you really start cheating and you say, well, Jason Tatum could be a guard.
Somebody's left out no matter what.
Yes. How I did it, fair or unfair, everybody can yell at me because all 4 guys should be starters, is I took the guy who's played the least amount of games and put him on my bench as the top reserve. So in this case, that's unfortunately Joel Embiid. So I did Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum. Those are my 3 Eastern Conference front court starters. And I gave away one of my reserves, obviously there with Embiid, but that's the way I went with the East front court.
Okay. I did the same thing for the front court, except I have Embiid in and Giannis out.
I'm seeing a lot of that on, especially some of the people who voted in the media because their media ballots were due have done that as well. And there's really you can't go wrong because you can't go right.
Yeah.
Like,
if you told me Durant is out and Giannis is in, or Tatum is out and Giannis, like, it doesn't matter. And that's where I ultimately came to. And I think I just decided what are the 3 I would most like to see on the floor playing together, and just I threw those guys out there just to see what, the Tatum and Durant shooting would look like next to Embiid. And that was my sole basis for it, because really it is like you could throw the 4 names into a hat, pick 3, and that's going to be about as good as any list you can make.
Yeah. And we should say too, like when we made our picks, we did not try to anticipate like who's going to get voted in or anything. These are truly, if we were building the 2 all-star teams using the the same position guidelines. So 3 front court starters, 2 backcourt starters, 3 front court reserves, 2 backcourt reserves, and 2 wild cards. That is, that's where we're at, right? Like these are the teams we're building this way. I will also say, within this too, it gets kind of tricky because we're trying not to be in a spot where we get swayed by, well, this guy will probably make it, so let me just put him in there. I think last year, I think we did this after the starters had been added, and maybe we did that. I can't remember with that, but that was kind of fun because we had the whole, is Wiggins really still maybe an all-star anyway?
Right. Yep.
Kind of conversation. So
that's right. We did.
And we should talk just very quickly before we get into the rest of the picks. How fun is it that they're going to do it playground style?
Oh, yes.
And pick the teams right before the game. Like it is going to be so good because someone is going to be livid. And they're going to be like, and they're going to go hard from the beginning of the All-Star game because they're going to be like, I got picked, 20th. Like, screw you guys. Like, get me the ball. Here I come.
Well, and that's why they haven't done it before like this, is because they don't want that. Nobody wants to be picked last. But this is playground style. This is a pickup game, and let's go. It's going to be fun. And here's the thing, from an NBA perspective, Keith, I've been of the mindset of, and I know I'm not the only one who does this, I don't need to tune into the All-Star game until somewhere around the mid-third quarter because that's when they actually start playing basketball anyway. Now, I got to tune into the beginning because I got to see who gets picked where, and then I'm probably going to stick around and watch the remainder of the game. I think it's brilliant from not just a fun standpoint, but also from a numbers standpoint in terms of getting people to watch this game from the get-go.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. If you already turn it on, you're more likely to just stay with it. Because then you also might be like, oh man, player X looks really angry that he was the 20th pick. I always go back to too. I remember this was a few years ago when Al Horford's first tenure with the Celtics, he got voted by the coaches into the All-Star game, and they were doing the draft. And when they were talking about it, they're like, "You worried about being the last pick?" And he had the best possible answer: last picked All-Star, still an All-Star. Like it's so true, right? You're still one of the 24 best players in the league for that year. So I didn't want to get any deeper into this without talking about that part of it because that's going to be so fun. All right, East backcourt. My East backcourt, I picked Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown. Okay. I was in between a couple different guys here. Mitchell was a lock for me. That one was very, very easy. I was in between a couple guys, and when I do these things, I don't want to be Celtics homer, put Jaylen Brown in. But the more and more I looked at it, he's on the best team in the league. He's having an outstanding season. I do think there's a good chance if he keeps this up, he makes All NBA this year. And for that's an all-star starter. I'm not going to freak out that I have 2 Celtics starting when they have the best record in the NBA. A lot of times that's how this goes.
No, I think that's very defensible, and I think that's probably the likely outcome personally. And maybe they can call you a homer, call me a hater. I did Donovan Mitchell and I went Tyrese Halliburton because I just wanted to get more of a spotlight on Halliburton on his play this season. I don't think that he's gotten enough recognition for what he's done in Indiana. How this team has played without him, I think, has been telling as well. The struggles they've had without him. And so I wound up putting Halliburton, but I'm not going to argue with you over putting Jaylen Brown in there. Like, that was my decision as well, was do I go Jaylen Brown? Do I go Halliburton? Flip a coin. You can make an argument for either player.
And the reality is neither one of them is going to get it because Kyrie's going to get voted in to that spot. He is such a commanding lead, but that's neither here nor there. So I do think, that's where it went. All right. So to recap for me, I had Giannis, Durant, Tatum, Brown, and Mitchell as my East starters.
Mm-hmm. And I've got Embiid, Tatum, Durant, Mitchell, and Halliburton.
All right. Let's go to the East reserves. You want to do that next?
Sure. I'll kick it off. Obviously,
go ahead.
Obviously, Giannis is there, of course. And then the East frontcourt reserves joining him, I've got Bam Adebayo and Pascal Siakam.
All right, so we're East frontcourt. We had the one little difference in the starters, but we've got the same 6 guys because I had Adebayo, Embiid, and Siakam, and I didn't have a lot of problem with making those decisions. I pretty much got there and said, yep, those are the guys, and moved very easily, into making other harder decisions further down the ballot.
Right. My East guards, I went clearly Jaylen Brown. And then, this is one that I haven't seen out there a ton, but I don't feel right about I've seen him get a few honorable mentions on some media ballots and stuff like that. but I don't feel right about the Cavs not having an all-star in there. So I've got Darius Garland joining Jaylen Brown.
Okay, yeah. So I had in that spot, that's where I have Halliburton because I had Brown
Mm-hmm.
in the starting group. And my other backcourt guy, I had Kyrie. And this wasn't a well, he's going to get voted in anyway kind of thing. It was, I mean, his numbers are really good.
Incredible. Yep.
I wish he just played basketball all the time. Like, and I'll leave it as simple as that because he's really, really good when he plays basketball, and he's helped keep that Nets team afloat while Kevin Durant is out. And I mean, it's just I kind of also sometimes too. I think like all-star games are made for guys like Kyrie. Like this is like get him out there. He can put on a show. Other guys love playing with him. In situations like this. So that's where I went to. All right, who are your two wild cards?
So my wild cards, that's where I got Kyrie into the mix. I've got Kyrie Irving and DeMar DeRozan as my two wild cards. And this was tough. Like I was looking at, players like Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle. There were a number of guys I was looking at for these wild card spots, but obviously Kyrie putting up the numbers he does. I almost just moved him in as the reserve spot in place of Darius Garland. You could flip flop either one of them. And then DeRozan just barely edges out a number of other players that could have been in there.
Yeah, I had DeRozan in there too. This is where I had a lot of discussion, and I came up with 7 different guys for these last two spots. I'm sorry, 8 different guys for these last 2 spots. I picked DeRozan. I also put James Harden in. It's if you look at James Harden's numbers, they're really, really good. The only reason they're down is he's just playing with a lot of other really good players. But his assists are great. His rebounds are still good. His points are good, but his shots are down. But his efficiency is way up this year. He's at like 47% overall or something like that from the field and like 38% from 3, which is the highest he's been in a long time for Harden. So he's, really, really hitting a lot of shots and he's just doing a little less because he doesn't have, to do everything himself. He's got Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris and everybody else. That means my toughest omission from this entire group was Darius Garland. He was the guy. My guys in order were Garland, Drew Holiday, then I had Jimmy Butler, and then I also had Trae Young, Julius Randle, and I had Kristaps Porzingis because he's actually played really, really well for the Wizards. So those were kind of my first set of guys out, but it was tough. So I think our only difference then is I had Harden in and you had Garland in. I think other than that, we had the same other 11 guys.
Yep. My most difficult ones, Jimmy Butler, certainly, and then just Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, essentially the guys that you named there. But yeah, pretty similar list that we came up with. Let's jump over to the West. Let's go west forwards.
You go ahead. You lead us off in the West.
Okay, so here's the 3 that I've got for the West forwards. LeBron's getting voted in, deservedly so. He'll be in there. Jokic, of course, and then I'm going with Sabonis, with Domantas Sabonis joining those 2. I think he deserves it. I think the Kings have been good. They've been winning. They've been a lot of fun, and I think that he's opening some eyes in terms of just how good he really is.
I cheated a little here. I'm gonna admit. But I think I've seen actual ballots that have done this too. I think he is eligible at both spots. I moved Luka into the front court.
Okay.
I have LeBron on my team, obviously, but I didn't have LeBron. It was between LeBron and Luka, and if I didn't cheat, I was going to put LeBron in. Okay. But I cheated a little because I wanted to get 2 guys in on the guard line is really what it was about. But I also had Jokic. I mean, anybody who doesn't have Jokic as a starter, you should lose your ballot for perpetuity. Sabonis too. I had Sabonis too, man. He's been so good for that Kings team, and they're one of the better teams in the league heading into All-Star. So I had Sabonis in there. So my front court was Jokic, Doncic, and Sabonis. Little international flavor there.
That's quite a bit of international flavor. For that. I have a feeling you might catch a little bit of heat about picking Sabonis over LeBron, but
potentially. My tiebreaker on this, my first tiebreaker is whose team is better. And the Kings record is significantly better than the Lakers. And then my next is games played, like I did in the East front court. So the reality is LeBron James is going to start the All-Star game. He's probably going to finish with the most votes. He'll be the captain with the first pick. We know how that's going to go. And I don't want this to be like Keith Smith doesn't think LeBron's an all-star.
Exactly.
Because when we get into the front court reserves, which, we'll do our backcourt starters, LeBron's my first front court reserve, so this is not a, I'm not gonna go crazy over that.
So here's what I've got for my West guards, and this is what was actually a little bit tough. I have Luka in as a guard. Clearly, he was making it somewhere. I actually kind of wish I could move him to a forward spot,
right?
Because I had a number of guards who I'm like, well, I want to put this guy in, but I've got Luka, and I had a tough time with this, but I'm going with SGA with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander joining Luka as the starter for the West.
Let me ask, who is your next guard? If you would put Luka on the forward line, who is your next guard?
It would have been Steph Curry would have been in there, but there could have been De'Aaron Fox was in the mix. Damian Lillard is in the mix there, but ultimately, it was Steph.
You didn't say the guy, but I know you've got him on your team. I'm certain. I had John Morant and SGA as my two guards.
Yes,
in the back.
John was another one. Yep.
Yeah, in West starting guard maybe was outside of East starting forwards or starting front court. West starting guard was probably the hardest mix of guys because
difficult.
You've got SGA, you've got Ja. That's where Luka really should be. Like I said, I cheated a little bit, but you've got Steph in that mix. You've got De'Aaron Fox. So yeah, that's something. All right, you want to do the reserves?
Sure. Yeah,
right,
let's go ahead.
I said it. LeBron leads off my reserves. Obviously, he will start the game very deservedly. So I think, I want to get your take on this. I'll pause here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to break the record before the All-Star game?
Yes.
What's it was about 148 points or something shy now.
He is 178 points away.
Okay.
He is going to break. He's going to break it on February 7th against OKC. That's been my prediction. I'm sticking with it because otherwise it's going to happen on the road. It would happen on
their happen at home. Yeah, and I'm now fully on board with it should happen at home, and I want him to tie the record with a skyhook.
Yeah.
Just because that'd be fun. And then I want to see him break the record with just one of those, either a ridiculous LeBron breakaway throwdown.
Yep.
That's like, peak everything he's been his entire career. Or I want it to be one of just those ice cold stare down baseline jump shots where it's like, doesn't even break a smile. And then hopefully then they'll stop the game and he'll, break his smile and get his flowers and everything. Cause this is must see. Like, this is going to be one of the coolest accomplishments. Because it may be a very long time before we see that record broken. Because he's 18 years or 19 years into his career. Like, that's a long time you got to play. And you've got to stay mostly healthy for that whole run.
LeBron, this is 20.
Tough. Yeah, 20th. That's right. This is 20 years. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So 20 years and staying fully healthy. And you're mostly healthy for most of his career. That's probably not going to be something we see again for a while.
We talked about this a bit today on for Lakers Nation. I said I don't want it to happen on a free throw, and if he's gonna,
I hope he misses it.
Yeah, miss it on purpose, man. Just give us something better than that. Yeah. And then the skyhook thing, yes, but he gets one shot at it.
Yeah,
you can't
turn into a circus. Right. Absolutely.
Yep.
If it was last game of the season, nothing to play for, and you wanted to take a few shots at it that way. But otherwise, then it becomes cheap and it's not fun. And but it's so funny too, because he'll probably make it. But what he'll probably do is he'll probably go into that game like 15 or let's say 14 points shy. Yep. And he'll probably come out and hit 5 3-pointers in the first quarter. Like, it'll be like, oh, cool. So LeBron did this shooting threes. Like, that's how we got there. Like, we'll see. All right. So LeBron, my top front court reserve, he will start the game. We know that. My next guy was Lauri Markkanen. Mm-hmm. I had to put him in. I think he's been unbelievable for Utah. Utah's been better than we all thought. So I put him in there. And then my last one, this is where I had a little bit of trouble. It gets a little rough with West front court reserves. So I went with Zion. I wanted to give the Pelicans somebody. And when I looked at it, Ingram's missed way too much time. Sure. And I really was like, who do I want to put in there for the Pelicans? I was like, it feels like a force to shove CJ McCollum in this super deep guard group. And I was like, you know what? I'm going with Zion. Like, he was great when he played. So I have that's where I'm going to go. I put Zion in that mix.
I had the same rationale. I went with Lauri Markkanen. I went Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zion Williamson as my trio. And again, it's tough because of missed games and all of that. Mm-hmm. But He's been good, and the Pelicans have been good enough to where they should have an all-star out there. So, yeah, similar rationale for why I went with the picks that I did.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. All right. If we go to the backcourt reserves for
Mhm.
me, because I had Morant and SGA as my starters, I went with Curry. Obviously, he's got to be there. And then I went with Anthony Edwards from the Timberwolves.
Mm.
I feel pretty good about that. I think he's had a really good season, excuse me, and I think the Wolves have really started to step up and move along.
All right, so I went with my reserves as John Morant, who again you could definitely put him into the starting mix, and Steph Curry. I think that, I mean, Steph, like if Steph isn't a starter, he's going to be a reserve. Like there's no question there. Ja as well. The West guards were, I mean, it's easy, but it's not like, it's kind of like the East front court where you're just looking at it, say, well, somebody deserving gets left out of this mix no matter what. It's kind of
Yeah.
like that here, where Ja, Steph, you could have him starting SGA. Like there's plenty of options.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, there's legit, I think, probably 4 or 5 guys who could start at that spot. All right, the wild cards.
Yep.
Go ahead. You do your 2 wild cards.
Okay, so this is where, so my rationale for this, I went with De'Aaron Fox, who I think is very deserving. He's been great
Mhm.
this season, and there's a number of players you could have turned to here, and I ultimately rationalized, if I'm not going to penalize Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zion Williamson too much for missing games, then I'm gonna go ahead and give a nod to Anthony Davis, and that'll be my homer pick. But I rationalized it as he's played better than any of them when he's been healthy. He's been more
Yeah.
impactful than any of them when he's been healthy. And I know he's missed games, but he's not that far off from what Zion has played or what Jaren Jackson Jr. has played. So I went with him, but I'm not going to fight you if there's other players that you'd want to put in there because it's certainly close.
Yeah, and kind of similar-ish on that line because I think when he's played, and it's not, it's so I'll say with AD and the guy I'm about to say, it's not like they've played 10 games. Like
Right.
then I'd be like, come on, man, like that's a good week and a half. Like what are we doing? With my guy, I went with Devin Booker
Yep.
because he's
That
been
was another
that
one that was right there
good.
for me.
So I went with Devin Booker, and then my last one, I so this is so just telling of who I am. This isn't a real. This is just for me and you to pick this for the front office
You
fans.
agonized over this,
I
didn't you?
did. I like legit was like, I don't know who I want to pick, and I was really like stressing over it. I went with Aaron Gordon, who has had an
Okay.
outstanding season. I didn't even realize how, like, I was like, yeah, he's in the mix for me. And then when I started looking at numbers, I was like, holy cow, like, he's been really incredible
Mhm.
this year. And probably, arguably, one of the best defenders of this entire group, too. So I put him in there, and I was then I started being like, man, imagine Zion and AG and Anthony Edwards, like, in an all-star game to get like
Cool.
that's a dunk
Yep.
contest, like ready to break out. Anthony Davis was close. The guy I feel worst about is De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
If I really wanted to, I like to balance the roster a little bit more. But if I went with one more guard, it would have been De'Aaron Fox. But then you had guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., who you said very should be in consideration. I also had Damian Lillard. I had Jamal
Damian Lillard. Yep.
Murray. So Jamal Murray was my other guy for like because I wanted to get 2 Nuggets. I felt like they've been so good this year too. It's just a lot of times I feel like, hey, if you're the best team in the league by the time you get there, like you should probably get rewarded for that. So I went with AG, but man, it's tough when you get down to those last couple of spots. There's a lot of deserving guys. My guess is it ends up another guard in that mix
Probably.
because what they'll do is they'll say, well, in reality, Luca can play as a front court guy, and who really cares? And it doesn't matter because it's the All-Star game. But yeah, now this is where I'll also say some of this stuff on, especially with the starters, like I don't want to be continued. Like you've done a great job making the All-Star game better with the draft idea to begin
Mm-hmm.
with the tribute to Kobe and the Elam ending and all
Elam
that
ending. Yep.
stuff. Now this pick with the whole pick right before the
Pick your
game
teams.
stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just make it positionless now.
Yes,
Moving
please.
forward.
Yes.
Or at worst, make it like one like center or one big, one point guard, one ball handler, however you want to call it, and then 3 whoever, and then the whole benches should just be wild cards. It should be whoever you want.
It shouldn't even matter. Like we're seeing like legit teams in the NBA that are playing without
Sure.
traditional point guards for long stretches, sometimes even starting. I I just think you should be able to put out whatever kind of team you want. Like
I
if,
agree.
if LeBron decides, hey, I want to pick 8 centers, like whatever,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah. And he
just have
can.
fun with
That's
it.
the thing that's crazy about it now, too, is they pick their team. So outside of, we know the other 8 starters have to be picked first after from the 2 captains, but then you're going to go into everybody else and you could just pick every single center if you wanted to. And the reality is, I know people are like, well, then centers will never get in. It's not true. Guys like Jokic, Embiid, Sabonis, they're going to get in no matter what this year, or at least they should. So yeah, it is funny. I mean, I guess it's pretty telling. We didn't have all that different of picks.
Yeah.
In the end, we're pretty close. So that's
Pretty darn similar. Yep.
And I honestly think when it comes out, starters come out obviously tomorrow. We'll find out who was voted in, and then a week from then, Thursday, we'll find out who was brought in or who was added by the coaches. I don't think we're going to be all that far off. I think we're going to be maybe 1 or 2 guys on each side, but I don't think it'll be anything more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's going to be, I think we're going to be pretty close to what ultimately the list really looks like. And, yeah, look, the All-Star game, I think they've made some good changes to it recently. I think they've made it even more fun. And I'm hoping for a good game this year too, because it's since they've added stuff, it's made it certainly more enjoyable. I'm hoping for a good dunk contest too. We've got Mac McClung from that. We got like G League players getting it. Like, I hope that kind of revitalizes
this. We haven't heard a lot about the 3-point contest yet. Like we have not, like, and that's usually by now we get 3 or 4 names of the guys who are going to be in it. We just haven't heard anything yet. So I'm very curious to see, because there were definitely some guys the other day that were like, I'm not going to campaign for it. It's not really what I want to do, but it's like, okay, but by saying that you are, so
you kind of are, right?
Yeah, like it's fun. And the skills competition, All-Star Saturday night is still one of my most favorite things. Like it's all so silly and goofy, but I absolutely love it. It's weird too. It's one of the only things that like my wife and daughter will like sit down and be like, they get super into it and watch the whole thing too, which is kind of funny. And then
there's the entertainment factor to it that goes beyond just, hey, I'm watching a competitive basketball game, which the non-basketball fans can tune that out. But
yeah, exactly. They both really like the 3-point shootout. Is like they both get super into that, and and it's fun. Yeah, it's often the best part of the Saturday night. When a great dunk contest is different. And did you see Aaron Gordon, what he said?
No, what did Aaron Gordon say?
He said, "Vote me into the game, and I'll do the dunk contest." So, yeah. But I don't know if it's already filled out or not. I haven't seen.
Interesting.
But we'll see. I'm sure if he gets voted into the game and he's like, hey, I want to do the dunk contest, guess what it'll be? We have a mystery, extra participant. Right? No one's gonna complain. So
the clock winds down and the surprise entrance into the Royal Rumble is Aaron Gordon. Yep.
It'd be awesome if while the guy's like getting his trophy, he comes on, dunks on him, and he's like, we're not done yet. Let's go.
That Gordon Levine NWO across his back.
That's it, right? That Gordon Levine dunk contest.
Oh my god!
And Aaron Gordon got robbed. Absolutely robbed. Should have won that.
The people's champ, the uncrowned champion.
It's funny. I think it goes losing the finals to the Rockets, losing the finals to the Lakers, Aaron Gordon losing the dunk contest. For Orlando Magic fans are the biggest like angry moments and upset moments in franchise history. Wow. And then Shaq leaving, and then
Shaq somewhere in that mix,
like 8 more things, and then Dwight Howard leaving.
And what about like Nick Anderson free throws or something?
That's the Rockets one. Yeah, that's for a specific singular moment. It's that or Courtney Lee it was game 1.
The layup.
Yeah, the layup. Man, what a great play call that was, and he just missed it. And that, I mean, not saying it would have changed the series, but it could have, right? You never know. You win game 1, and series can look completely different.
Oh no, in LA, he's known as Saint Courtney.
Yeah,
because we appreciate him so much.
That was rough, but yeah. So that's where it is for Orlando Magic fans in the terms of franchise disappointment. So Aaron Gordon losing that dunk contest is way up there, and it should be because he should have won.
Absolutely, he definitely should have, and I'd love to see him get back into it again and see if he can right that wrong. But should be an exciting All-Star experience coming up mid-February. We do have the trade deadline coming up before then.
2 weeks.
That's right. That's right. Let's go.
Let us know in the comments what you think of our picks. Let us know who your picks were. Remember the rules, as always. If you scream that somebody should be on, you got to say somebody else who comes off. So you got to, you either tell us that, or when the real teams come out, you can't scream that your guy should be in there without saying somebody else should come out, because there's only 24 spots. So
that's right.
That's got to always be kept in mind. But yeah, let us know who your all-stars are, or who we really missed on, and that. And I tried really hard to make sure like I didn't fully like miss on like, oh my God, this guy, like we didn't even talk
Like an obvious,
in the whole thing. And I'm sure someone will still have someone they'll bring up, but
sure.
that's part of the fun of it.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you're subscribing to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube, as well as the podcast feed over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Again, you can do both. Subscribe on YouTube and to the podcast version. Highly encourage that. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.